The moment I woke up in the middle of a grim, dark fantasy novel with three different female leads, my father, the king, ordered me, one of only two princes, to be married off to the ruler of the Southern March. A political hostage. Basically, my mother was a wreck, sobbing her heart out. The Southern March is a world away. My son, I may never see you again in this lifetime. I patted her hand. Don't be sad, Mother. I'm the one who asked for this. That's right. I woke up one day and found myself stuck inside a novel. The worst part? I wasn't a hero. I was Ethan Vance, the worthless cannon fodder side character. Even though I was the second prince, with only my older brother, Marcus, ahead of me in the line of succession, my reputation as a good-for-nothing playboy was so cemented that my fate as a disposable pawn was practically chiseled in stone. As for the three heroines of this story, first, there was Sierra Frost, the impossibly badass warden of the South. Then, Seraphina, the breathtakingly beautiful and gentle star of the city's most exclusive pleasure house. And finally, Lyanna Thorne, my childhood friend and fiancée, daughter of the Secretary of State, with a dangerous possessive streak. None of them were women you mess with. The original Ethan, for some idiotic reason, decided to get tangled up with all three. Of course, now that I had volunteered to be shipped off to the Southern March, my engagement to Lyanna was automatically null and void. The actual hero of the story was a guy named Caleb Hayes, a star pupil from the Royal Academy. Now working in the Royal Scriptorium, he was the strong, silent type. In the end, he was supposed to back my brother Marcus in the fight for the throne, win the support of all three heroines, and ascend to greatness. And me, the cannon fodder? I was supposed to lose the succession crisis to Marcus and be politely handed a cup of poison. I have no idea what the original Ethan was thinking. The guy was a textbook spoiled prince, spending his days in the gilded cage listening to singers and his nights with courtesans. Why in the world would a guy like that want to compete for the throne? Wouldn't it be better to just be a rich, carefree lord with a different beautiful woman on his arm every night? In the book, the three heroines fall madly in love with Caleb Hayes and clear every obstacle from his path. That, of course, included me. I, for one, had no desire to die, and even if I fought with my non-existent power base, I couldn't possibly win against my brother and his all-star team. So now, by getting as far away from the heroines as possible and shipping myself off to another country, the flames of their ambition shouldn't reach me, right? But first, I needed to make a clean break. I'd actually slept with a courtesan, and I still had to deliver the annulment papers to Lyanna's family. After leaving the palace, I headed straight for the gilded cage to find Seraphina. If I was close to anyone, it was her. We'd spent countless nights together. The thought of that gentle, bewitching woman brought a pang of genuine regret. She was, after all, the one who'd taught me everything. For years, her door had only ever opened for me. But then I remember the plot. The hero, Caleb Hayes, was about to meet her, and Seraphina wasn't just a courtesan. She was secretly the head of the Nightingale Network, the largest international intelligence organization in the world. The two of them were supposed to hit it off immediately. The thought snapped me back to reality. I had to cut ties, and cut them now. I was leaving the kingdom of Ethelgard in 3 months anyway. When I arrived at the gilded cage, Seraphina was on the main stage, her fingers dancing over a harp. The melody was like a mountain stream, crisp and beautiful. A crowd of aspiring poets and artists watched, mesmerized, their eyes filled with a fanatical adoration. To them, she was an untouchable flower, beautiful but thorny. A goddess. But I was the one who had secretly claimed their goddess long ago. I just kept her here to avoid my father's wrath. The song ended, and the room erupted in applause. Several of the poets began theatrically composing verses on the spot. Here in the gilded cage, poetry was the coin of the realm. I couldn't have cared less. I was playing a different game entirely. They were desperately trying to show off their wit for a chance at her attention. I'd already explored every inch of her. They were on level 1. I was on level 10. Just as I was looking for a chance to slip into the back courtyard and find her private chambers, I spotted him in the crowd. Caleb Hayes. Dressed in white, tall, and handsome. He was walking up to the stage, presenting his own poem. As the top graduate of the Royal Academy, his talent was undeniable. His words quickly caught Seraphina's attention. She invited him into her private room, and soon, the sound of her tinkling laughter drifted out. The poets below looked like they wanted to die. I sighed. My timing was terrible. Don't ask why a prince wouldn't just rough up a former top student. I had spies watching my every move. The second I caused a scene, news that I was fighting over an entertainer in the gilded cage would reach the king's study. Whether I got a lecture or exile would depend entirely on his mood. I was about to leave when her personal attendant, Chloe, stopped me at the door. "Your Highness, my lady requests your presence." That was fast. Is Caleb a two-pump chump? The thought crossed my mind, but I followed Chloe anyway. The sooner I ended this, the better my chances of survival. I had walked the path to her courtyard countless times, but today it felt like the longest walk of my life. What if I ran into Caleb? Would the twisted, convoluted plot of the novel start all over again? Luckily, my fears were unfounded. I didn't see him. When I entered the room, Serafina was sitting gracefully at a table, her long, dark hair cascading down her back. A simple silk robe clung to her curves, outlining a figure that could drive men to madness. You could question the original Ethan's character, but not his taste. Her eyes were slightly red. "Your Highness came all this way, but didn't plan to see me? Have you grown tired of me?" she began, her voice trembling. "But of course, I'm just a common girl from House of Pleasure." She dabbed at her eyes, looking so pitifully beautiful it made you want to pull her into your arms and promise her the world. Damn it, she's good. I suppressed the urge. "Serafina," I said softly, "I came to give you your freedom. From now on, you don't have to stay here. You can be a normal person." I expected her to be overjoyed. Instead, her face filled with sorrow and hurt. "Your Highness, have I not served you well? Or are you looking for a new thrill?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Is this a role play? Grant me freedom, only to stage a scene where you take me by force later." She gave a resigned sigh. "Very well, I will satisfy you." What? Okay, I had to admit, that sounded exactly like something the old, degenerate Ethan would do. Sick, twisted, and exciting. Maybe a remnant of his consciousness was still in here, because my mind was suddenly flooded with some very blush-worthy images. "No, I'm serious," I stammered, slapping the contract of service I prepared onto the table. Serafina's cheeks flushed. "Then I shall be serious, too." She dropped to the floor, tears streaming down her face, her eyes wide with mock terror. "I am but a simple village girl, the only daughter of the hunter from the edge of the woods. Please, my lord, spare me. I am still innocent." Her eyes, red-rimmed and misty, were heartbreakingly convincing. It was impossible to resist. Okay, seriously, who could say no to that? And so, I fell from grace for one more night. My feet just wouldn't walk me out the door. I swear it wasn't my fault. The next morning, I dragged my exhausted body out of her courtyard, leaning against the wall for support. I slapped myself twice. "You're going to get yourself killed." But as I stumbled out, I saw him. Caleb Hayes, waiting right outside. His eyes were dark, fixed on me with a look so intense it felt like he wanted to tear me limb from limb. I cursed under my breath and ducked into a side street, getting away as fast as I could. After putting a few blocks between us, I found a stall selling breakfast sandwiches and was about to sit down when I heard a commotion nearby. From the back, they looked like my usual posse of morons. Warren, Chad, and Lance, a few degenerate sons of nobility I used to run the streets with, causing trouble. I walked closer and heard Warren's sleazy laugh. Well, if it isn't the newly appointed royal scribe, Caleb Hayes. Fresh from the gilded cage, are we? Who knew the great academic spent his nights there too? "Huh, he's just a glorified clerk," Chad chimed in. "If it weren't for a few sappy poems, none of those girls would even look at him. Probably can't even afford to pay." "Listen here, kid," Lance added, "Serafina belongs to Prince Ethan. You'd better watch your eyes if you know what's good for you." As their taunts grew uglier, Caleb's face turned a shade of purple. His fists were clenched so tight his knuckles were white. I knew if I didn't step in, things were about to get bloody. These idiots would absolutely start a fight, even with the story's hero. The moment they saw me, they eagerly offered me their riding crops. "Your Highness, want to handle this yourself?" I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. In the novel, these three were my loyal henchmen, helping me commit all sorts of stupid acts. With my royal status, we basically owned the city. They were also constantly harassing Caleb, usually just setting themselves up to be humiliated by him. I quickly pulled them away, dragging them back to the breakfast stall. The other patrons scattered like we were the plague. Warren grinned. "Your Highness, back to the gilded cage tonight." I paused for a moment. "Not tonight, and probably not ever again." Chad laughed as if he'd just heard the world's greatest joke. "You kidding, Your Highness? If you stop going, half the girls in that place will cry themselves to sleep." My voice grew serious. "You must have heard the king's decree. In 3 months, I'm going to the Southern March to be married." The air went dead silent. After a long moment, Warren broke the quiet. "You're serious, Your Highness? A consort is the lowest of the low. It won't be like this." I shook my head, putting on a somber, heroic act. "General Sierra Frost, a woman, can fight and bleed for our kingdom on the border. As a son of House Vance, it is my duty to step forward and protect Ethelgard." The three of them just looked at me with disdain. All right, don't try to talk him out of it," Warren said sarcastically, pulling the other two away. "His Highness has lofty ambitions. We clearly walk different paths." They left. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. In the book, these three were just stepping stones for Caleb. Their powerful families became fuel for his rise, and they were all eventually executed. We weren't on the same path anymore. I finished my breakfast and headed back to my residence. After everyone had cleared out, a figure in silver armor emerged from the shadows of the breakfast stall. It was a female general, her face impassive. She had heard the entire conversation. Beneath the silver helmet was a face that could launch 1,000 ships, both stunning and severe. Sierra Frost. The royal decree about the political marriage had spread through the entire kingdom, and public opinion of me had actually improved a little. Passing a tailor's shop, I felt the few gold coins left in my pocket and decided to order some new dresses for my mother. Although she was a queen, she wasn't favored by my father, mostly because of me. My brother Marcus's mother constantly undermined her. My mother had her royal stipend, but she often had to use it to bail me out. Aside from a few gowns for official functions, she lived a very simple life. This was the least I could do for her before I left. I stepped inside the shop and saw her, the second heroine of the novel, General Sierra Frost. She was in full silver armor, a long sword at her hip. Her features were exquisite, but her expression was cold as ice. The contrast with her stunning face, framed by the silver helm, was something else. She was also ordering clothes, but they were men's clothes. It looked like she was planning to go around in disguise. With the marriage alliance pending, the southern border would be quiet. It made sense for her to return to the capital for a rest. She had no intention of acknowledging me, and I certainly wasn't going to provoke her. I found a seat, and a clerk came over. I picked out a few bolts of fine silk, gave him my mother's measurements, paid, and was about to leave. Just then, Caleb Hayes walked in. He was carrying a bolt of cloud-patterned brocade, a rare import. It was the favorite fabric of my fiancée, Liana Thorne. Sierra looked up. Her eyes met Caleb's. Oh, great. Here we go. The threads of fate twisting together right on schedule. A teasing, wicked smile spread across Sierra's lips. She raised her sheathed longsword and pointed it straight at Caleb. Caleb, completely oblivious to the danger, was still lost in her devastatingly beautiful face. I groaned. In a burst of motion, using every ounce of speed I possessed, I leaped in front of him. I saw the look of confusion and terror on his face as I shielded him, hoping to divert this disaster. I swear all I wanted to do was knock the plot off its rails a little to keep the hero and heroine from getting entangled so soon and buy myself some more time. If I had known what would happen next, I never would have moved. Sierra's sword sheath slammed squarely into the bridge of my nose. My world went dark for a second, then exploded in pain. Blood gushed from my nose like a broken faucet. Yep, my nose was definitely broken. I let out a pathetic scream. It seemed Sierra was just trying to scare Caleb, to get his attention, all part of the story script. And I had just become the sacrificial lamb. The words, "You have got to be kidding me," were practically flashing on my forehead. That girl packed a serious punch. Caleb just stood there dumbfounded. He never expected me to take the hit for him. But given our rivalry, he didn't know whether to help me or not. So he just froze. Finally, he managed a concerned, "Your Highness, are you all right?" Sierra finally snapped out of it, rushing over and helping me up. Your Highness, are you okay? A stampede of curses galloped through my mind. Do I look okay? It hurt so much I could barely breathe, and they were just standing there asking questions. Couldn't they see I needed a healer? Assaulting a prince was a capital offense. A capital offense, Sierra. She hoisted me onto her shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Blood dripped all over her silver armor. All I could do was cling to her surprisingly slender shoulders. Sierra, I gritted out. You hit like a mule. Sierra carried me all the way back to my residence. The household physician bandaged me up, but my head was still spinning. When I looked up, I met her deep, beautiful eyes. Better, she asked, her face a mask. I blinked, then shook my head. My head was wrapped like a mummy. Did I look better? Next time, don't meddle, she said, her tone a strange mix of apology and command. I was a prince, damn it. A surge of anger arose in me. If you want to get Caleb's attention, I sneered, try being more of a lady. Men like gentle, delicate flowers. Sierra looked down, and for a rare moment, she didn't argue. She just sat there beside me, her knees pressed tightly together, trying to look prim and proper. But the armor seemed to be pinching her, and after a few moments, she started fidgeting again. I almost laughed. Just as I was about to tell her to leave, my butler, Hector, announced a visitor. My childhood fiancée, Liana Thorne, was here. I was about to tell Sierra to slip out the back, but it was too late. Liana swept in, carrying a medical kit. She was wearing a white dress made from that same imported cloud brocade, her hair in 2 high ponytails. It was the perfect look for a dangerously possessive girl. Was this a thing even back then? Her eyes flickered over Sierra, a strange light in them, before she set down her kit. Ethan, my love, I'm here to change your dressing. I was stunned. It had only been a couple of hours since the incident at the tailor's. How did she know I was hurt? And when did she learn medicine? Was she following me? The thought of Liana's possessive personality sent a shiver down my spine. No, it's fine, I said quickly. The physician just changed it. Liana insisted. His remedies aren't as good as mine. I'm your fiancé, Ethan. Don't you trust me? As she spoke, she shot a cold glance at Sierra. I nodded, then quickly shook my head. Of course I trust you. Liana skillfully unwrapped the bandages, pulling my head gently against her chest. I caught the faint, pleasant scent of her perfume. It was hard to refuse. She took out a jar of dark, musky ointment and began to apply it to my wound with incredible gentleness. A cool, soothing sensation spread over my skin. She was so close I could see every detail of her flawless face. I had to hand it to the old Ethan. His taste in women was top-notch. Rest well tonight. You should be much better by morning, Liana said, packing up her kit, her eyes fixed on me. It was still morning. I had hours to go until night. What was I supposed to do? Sleep all day. Her stare made my skin crawl. Sierra, apparently bored by the scene, got up and left without a word. Liana's gaze followed her out, her expression calm. Ethan, she said softly, don't even think about running off. Stay home and rest. Her words sounded like a caring suggestion, but they were dripping with subtext. The royal decree about my marriage had been issued, but she acted like she'd never heard it, still referring to herself as my fiancée. No, I had to end this. If I didn't, there was no telling what this girl would do. But my mouth moved faster than my brain. Thank you, Liana, I heard myself say. I wanted to punch myself. Liana smiled, satisfied, and left with her kit. As she walked out, her eyes lingered on my legs for a moment too long. A few days later, my injuries had mostly healed. The first thing I did was have a gift prepared, and I took the annulment papers to the Thorne estate myself. Liana's father, Lord Thorne, was the Secretary of State. When I first proposed the political marriage, he was the first one to stand up and support me, praising my selfless devotion to the kingdom. If I weren't a prince and the marriage hadn't been arranged by the king, the old fox would have been at my door to break it off long ago. As expected, when I presented the annulment, Lord Thorne's face lit up. He accepted immediately and refused the gift. For your highness to sacrifice himself for the good of the kingdom. This old servant is filled with admiration, he said, raising a cup of tea to me as if it were wine. He then had someone bring out a banknote for 10,000 gold coins. The journey to the southern march is long and perilous. Please accept this small token. I wasn't about to be polite. I pocketed the money. I only regret the harm this does to Lyanna's reputation. Lord Thorne could barely contain his grin. Not at all, not at all. Lyanna understands completely. Besides, he added, she already has someone she fancies. My heart skipped a beat. Her someone had to be Caleb Hayes. I congratulated myself on getting here just in time. After some more pleasantries, I made my excuses. As I reached the main hall, several armed guards blocked my path. Your Highness, the young lady requests your presence. From the way they stood, it wasn't really a request. I remained calm. Miss Thorne and I are no longer engaged. It wouldn't be appropriate for us to meet. The young lady said she merely wishes to offer you a farewell toast. One of the guards insisted. I thought about our childhood together, our long history. A farewell drink seemed reasonable. Very well. Lead the way. The guards led me to a private courtyard and then stood watch at the door. I pushed it open. Lyanna was sitting at a table, dressed in a striking red gown. The room was decorated festively, with red candles lit all around. What was this? A forced wedding night? I immediately wanted to bolt, but a slender hand grabbed my arm and pulled me inside. Ethan, you're leaving, and you didn't even want to see me one last time? No, of course not. I stammered. She pulled me down to a seat. She smelled faintly of flowers like she had just bathed. She sat across from me and poured me a glass of wine. Ethan, do you remember what you said at the Chapel of the White Stallion? Of course I did. I had sworn under the heavens that I would marry her one day. I remember. Lyanna's face fell. Then why did you look at Sierra Frost that way the other day? What? I hadn't looked at her any particular way. And you promised me, she continued, her voice rising, that if you ever betrayed me, you would be struck by lightning and torn to pieces. I looked up at her. Her eyes held a manic gleam. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a red candle in a basket behind her. It was riddled with pinpricks. A cold dread washed over me. Lyanna, listen to me, I explained hastily. The decree came from my father. I have no choice. At a time like this, blaming my dad was the only option. If I don't go, our two kingdoms will go to war. Countless people will die. Lyanna suddenly smiled. I know. You're a great hero, and I'm an understanding girl. I breathed a quiet sigh of relief, terrified she was about to snap and stab me with a hairpin. She stood up and moved closer. Then tell me, am I prettier, or is the Princess of the Southern March? I'd never even seen the Southern Princess. You are, of course. And compared to Sierra Frost? You are without a doubt. Lyanna beamed and handed me the full glass of wine. I knew it, Ethan. Drink this. I had no choice but to down it. Then she started serving me food. Have some of this. I made your favorite braised short ribs. But the ribs tasted off. I couldn't put my finger on it. I drank a few more glasses of wine to wash it down, but my eyelids suddenly felt heavy. Had I not slept well last night? I'd only practiced my sword forms for 3 hours. I propped my chin on my hand, trying to stay awake, but my eyelids grew heavier and heavier. My head started to spin. Don't be afraid, Ethan, Lyanna whispered in my ear. Just sleep. It will all be better when you wake up. Lyanna will protect you. Protect me? A horrifying realization dawned on me. But my head was too heavy. It slammed onto the table, and everything went black. When I came to, I was in a dungeon. My hands and feet were shackled to the wall. I couldn't move. Lyanna was sitting in front of me, just watching me. Shit! I yelled, startled, and banged my head against the solid stone wall behind me. I'd been kidnapped by my crazy ex-fiancée. I remembered the pin-riddled candle in her room. She was going to kill me. I frantically did a mental check of my body, trying to feel if any important parts were missing. Okay. Phew. Everything was still attached. Ethan, Lyanna said, a strange smile on her face. Now you belong only to me. You can't go to the Southern March. You can't seduce that harlot Sierra Frost. We could be together forever. I forced myself to stay calm, swallowing hard. Lyanna, you're scaring me. Even if we want to be together, you don't have to chain me up. I pleaded. You can't force love. Her smile was chilling. Whether it's forced or not, I don't care. As long as it quenches my thirst. Her eyes narrowed. Are you saying you never had feelings for me, Ethan? Do you love the Southern Princess? Or do you love Sierra Frost? A pair of red-handled scissors suddenly appeared in her hand. You said it yourself, Ethan. If you weren't with me, you'd be torn to pieces. My scalp prickled. This wasn't just a possessive streak. She was a genuine lunatic. Somebody help me. Liana, I never said I didn't want to be with you, I said, my voice shaking. Then why are you going to the Southern March? You can't escape, Ethan. You can only be with me for the rest of your life. She licked the blade of the scissors, her eyes roaming over my body. Go to sleep, Ethan. Once you're asleep, we can be together forever. My eyelids were getting heavy again. She was definitely planning to cut me up. I summoned my last ounce of strength and, without a second's hesitation, lunged forward and kissed her. At the same time, I uttered the words that could have been my last. Liana, I love you. I only love you. The cool touch of her lips jolted me with a bit of clarity. Liana's face instantly turned crimson. She closed her eyes, looking shy and flustered. Just then, the dungeon door burst open with a crash. A flood of people poured in. Sierra Frost was at the forefront, a long spear in her hand. Behind her were a crowd of Thorne family guards, Lord Thorne himself, and Caleb Hayes. With a flick of her wrist, Sierra's spear sliced through my chains. She turned her cold gaze on Lord Thorne. Secretary Thorne, imprisoning a member of the royal family is an act of treason, punishable by the execution of your entire line. I was surprised to see Caleb. Was this part of the plot, too? Sure enough, Caleb's eyes landed on Liana, and he couldn't look away. The girl might be crazy, but she was stunningly beautiful. Even the hero wasn't immune. After Sierra rescued me from the Thorne family dungeon, I had a new plan. Having witnessed the power of the hero's plot armor firsthand, I realized that no matter how hard I tried to stay away, the hero and heroines would always find a way to connect. Instead of fighting them, maybe I could find an ally with a common goal. Their ultimate objective, after all, was to end up with the hero. My choice was obvious: General Sierra Frost. She seemed the most rational of the three. One of the others tried to seduce me at every turn, and the other tried to murder me. No, thank you. I decided to play matchmaker. If I could get her and Caleb to their happily ever after, it would benefit me. If they were busy being in love, I could surely survive the next 2 months and escape to the Southern March. I invited Sierra to meet me at a tavern by the River Lyra, famous for its fresh trout. To my surprise, she readily agreed, which boosted my confidence. When I arrived, she was already there, waiting. She wore a simple white dress, a touch of makeup on her face, looking like a snow lotus from a frozen mountain peak. I had no idea the tough-as-nails general could look so beautiful in a dress. For a moment, I was speechless. "Do you like it?" Sierra asked, covering her mouth with her hand as she smiled. The Ice Queen melted, and the effect was breathtaking. I nodded dumbly. Yes, beautiful. But in that instant, the air filled with killing intent. From the fishing boats moored around the tavern, dozens of men in black leaped out, brandishing gleaming blades. Sierra reacted instantly. She kicked the table over, sending our entire trout dinner spilling onto the ground. "Hey, my trout!" I yelped, a pang of genuine loss hitting me. "Who are you? Why are you attacking me?" Sierra demanded, wielding a broken table leg, her expression frigid. Dressed for a dinner date, she hadn't brought her sword. "Damn it, Sierra Frost. I've had enough of you," one of the assassins growled through his mask. "Acting like you're some great general, you bitch." "Who sent you?" Sierra asked coldly. "You'll find out once we've had our fun with you," another one sneered. Sierra's face darkened. She swung the table leg, and the assassins swarmed her. She truly was a seasoned warrior. Even alone against dozens of men, she didn't back down. But she was hampered by the dress, and her makeshift weapon was quickly being whittled down to a splinter. "Our master offered you a chance, Sierra, but you spat in his face," the leader snarled. "Don't blame us for what happens next." The circle of black-clad men tightened, backing her into a corner. I sighed. Time for me to step up. I glanced around frantically and spotted the slop buckets by the tavern's kitchen. Without a second thought, I grabbed 2 of them and charged, flinging their rancid contents over the assassins' heads. The stench was overwhelming. Greasy water and old food drenched them. The leader had noodles hanging from his mask. The attack threw them into chaos. In that moment of confusion, I slammed into the men in front of me, grabbed Sierra's hand, and ran. "Bastard! Get them!" They roared, but they were too busy wiping filth off themselves to give chase immediately. Sierra seemed to know the area well, pulling me through a maze of alleys. The shouts faded behind us. We were safe. In the darkness, Sierra squeezed my hand, her face grim. "Ethan Vance, did you set me up?" I shook my head so fast it rattled. Under the threat of her glare, I confessed my entire plan to hook her up with Caleb. Sierra stared at me like I was the biggest idiot on the planet. "Who told you I like Caleb Hayes?" I blinked. "Well, at the tailor's shop." "Why did you mess with him? Don't you feel different around him than anyone else?" Sierra froneth. "I was just testing the Royal Academy valedictorian's fighting skills." I almost fainted. The guy was a scholar. What did that have to do with fighting? "I don't know why," she admitted, "but when I see him, I get this uncontrollable urge to bully him, to get his attention. But there's no way I could ever fall for someone like him. Absolutely not." It dawned on me. This was the plot's forced romance kicking in. After a moment, the general lifted her chin proudly. "I do not like Caleb Hayes, and I won't bother him again. So stay out of it, or you'll have my sword to answer to." Well, so much for matchmaking. The plan was a bust before it even started. The general was as stubborn as ever. Sierra shot me a threatening smile, then brushed some of the filth off my clothes. "Your arm," she said, her voice hesitant. I looked down. Sometime during the fight, my arm had been cut. Blood was soaking through my sleeve. I quickly hid it behind my back. "It's nothing, just a scratch." She forcefully pulled my arm forward, ripping the sleeve to examine the wound. "It's deep. We need to stop the bleeding immediately. My estate is close. Come with me." I shook my head. "It's late. It wouldn't be appropriate for us to be alone together. People will talk." Sierra posed. "There are no servants at my estate. Just an old steward, my uncle." Then I remembered. The Frost family had been generals for generations, guarding the southern border. Most of the men had died in battle. In Sierra's generation, her two older brothers had been killed, leaving only her to carry the family legacy. They were true patriots. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, following her. We soon arrived at the general's estate. 2 yellow lanterns hung by the gate, but there were no guards. It felt desolate. I was shocked that the warden of the South lived with no staff. "The kingdom cut the pensions for fallen soldiers in half these past few years," she explained. "I couldn't stand by and do nothing, so I sold off some family assets to help their families. I'm a general. I don't need anyone to wait on me." I sighed. The kingdom of Ethelgard was in decline. If not for soldiers like her holding the line, the southern march would have invaded long ago. "Uncle Chun isn't well. He's already asleep," Sierra said, bringing out a medical kit. She took out some antiseptic powders, carefully cleaned my wound, and then bandaged it with a practiced efficiency. She noticed me watching her and blushed slightly. You get used to treating wounds on the battlefield. After putting the kit away, she changed into a set of simple men's clothes and seemed to relax. "Your Highness," she began, "were you being sincere before?" I was confused. "About what?" "That day at the breakfast stall outside the Gilded Cage. You said that as a son of House Vance, for the good of Ethelgard." She trailed off, probably remembering I'd just spent the night debauching myself. "Never mind," she said coldly. I was completely lost, but didn't dare ask. She noticed my pale lips. "Are you hungry?" I nodded. Our grand trout dinner had ended up on the floor, and I was starving. I never thought I would live to see the day the great General Frost cooked a meal for me. I was beginning to see a whole new side to her. She must have endured so much, losing her parents and brothers, growing up alone, forced to be independent. It had forged her into the formidable, uncompromising woman she was today. Her cooking was excellent, especially the fish. It was fresh and flavorful, probably a specialty from the river-rich southern land she guarded. Because of my injury, I stayed the night at her estate. Sierra couldn't care less about rumors or reputation, which was the only reason I felt comfortable accepting. The next morning, she was waiting for me in the courtyard. A magnificent white stallion stood beside her. There was no other horse. How was I supposed to get back? My horse from yesterday was long gone. Sierra seemed to realize the awkwardness of the situation. She swung herself into the saddle, then extended a hand to me. "Get on. I'll take you home." For some reason, I didn't refuse. I took her hand and vaulted up behind her. The saddle was only big enough for one, so I awkwardly braced myself against the back of it. "Hold on," Sierra commanded, and with a flick of the reins, the horse shot forward like an arrow. Inertia threw me backward, and I had no choice but to wrap my arms tightly around her slim waist. I felt her body tense for a moment. I had to admit, she felt surprisingly good to hold. I might have squeezed a little tighter. "Don't get any ideas, or I'll cut your hands off," she said. Her voice carried on the wind. Her face flushed. I blushed furiously, swearing to myself it was a reflex left over from the original Ethan. It had nothing to do with me. As we reached my estate, I saw a familiar, unwelcome figure waiting outside. Liana. I hissed at Sierra to go around to the back gate, but she either didn't hear me or didn't care. She pulled the horse to a dramatic halt right at the main entrance. "Liana's hurt." Eerie eyes immediately found us, zeroing in on my hands on Sierra's waist. "Oh, this is bad." I snatched my hands back and jumped off the horse. Liana was holding her medical kit. "Ethan," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "Where did you go? I couldn't find you anywhere." I silently prayed she would never find me again. Why couldn't she focus all this crazy energy on Caleb Hayes? I sidled up to my butler, Hector. "Hector," I whispered, "Liana's family kidnapped a prince. Didn't my father do anything? They're just letting her wander around? What about the royal family's honor?" Hector looked uncomfortable. "His Majesty fined Lord Thorne 3 years' salary and ordered Miss Thorne to be confined to her home for 3 years. That's it. That's it," Hector confirmed. "His Majesty's view is that with the royal wedding approaching, it's best not to cause more trouble. Since you're safe, he said to let it go." Of course, the least favored prince. My dear old dad didn't give a damn about my life. The political alliance was the only thing that mattered, and he needed Lord Thorne to oversee the arrangements. "Ethan, come here, let me see. Are you hurt again?" Liana said, walking toward me. Sierra suddenly stepped between us. "Miss Thorne, you're sick. Very sick." The two women stared each other down, sparks practically flying from their eyes. The badass general versus the possessive psycho. A clash of titans. "Caleb Hayes, where the hell are you? This is your mess, and I'm the one suffering for it." I had no choice but to step in. "Miss Thorne, the annulment has been delivered and accepted. We're done. Can you please stop harassing me? It's not good for your reputation." I knew I'd made a mistake the moment the words left my mouth. As predicted, a chilling frost fell over Liana's face. "Ethan, are you trying to abandon me? Have you forgotten your oath?" The red scissors appeared in her hand again. "Oh, hell no. Not again. Hector, get some people and escort this young lady back to her estate. And tell Lord Thorne not to let her out again, for God's sake." Hector quickly gathered a few of the sturdier maids, who dragged Liana away. As she was being pulled off, she stared at me with an unnervingly calm expression, her lips moving silently. I could read them perfectly. "Ethan, you can't run away." Once she was gone, I finally let out a breath. There was a damn good reason cannon fodder characters died early. When I turned to say goodbye to Sierra, she was already gone. News that the Secretary of State's daughter had apparently gone mad spread through the capital like wildfire. Her reputation was destroyed. Who would marry a crazy woman who tied you up in a dungeon? The sons of noble families started avoiding the Thorne estate like the plague. I didn't care. Caleb had seemed quite interested in her that day. Maybe only the hero could tame her. I just hoped he'd get on with it before she kidnapped me again and held a pair of scissors to my groin, asking if I still loved her. I was done with Liana Thorne. Any kindness, any sympathy would just be proof to her that I still cared, and then the crazy would come out again. She didn't care about political marriages or wars. She was terrifying. The date of the wedding grew closer. Liana hadn't bothered me again. Her father must have locked her down tight. Serafina sent a few letters, but that was it. Caleb, assuming I was as good as gone, left me alone. I had officially survived past my original death date in the novel. The plot had shifted, but things were looking up. I waited peacefully in my residence, ready to escape this hellscape. One day, a messenger from Sierra arrived, inviting me to go hunting at Wyvern's Peak. I refused without a second thought. Even though she claimed not to like Caleb, I wasn't getting involved again. The next day, she showed up at my door. "Ethan," she said, not even bothering with my title. I extended a sincere invitation. "How could you refuse? The wedding with the Southern March is imminent. It must take priority," I said, not meeting her eyes. Sierra paused, her fists clenching. After a moment, She spoke, her voice low and steady. I won't let you go. What? I nearly jumped out of my skin. I said, she repeated, as if steeling herself. I will not allow you to marry into the Southern March. She lost it. She completely lost her mind. The Southern March has an army 1,000,000 strong. Their power far exceeds our own. If we break the alliance, their armies will be at our gates. General, you are a seasoned commander. You've always been so wise. Why are you saying this now? Sierra held her head high. 1,000,000 soldiers, so what? We'll fight. We have the Great River as a natural defense. The Southerners are no real threat. I, Sierra Frost, can die on the battlefield, but I will not watch a man like you, a man who carries the world on his shoulders, throw himself into a pit of fire. My brain short-circuited. She must have overheard that load of heroic crap I fed my idiot friends outside the gilded cage. And the one-track-minded general actually believed it. What was I supposed to do now? I didn't have a world-saving bone in my body. Sierra, don't be ridiculous, I sighed. The king's decree has been made. It cannot be changed. She strode forward and pinned me against the wall, her eyes burning into mine. Ethan Vance, I love you. The sudden confession left me completely stunned. What the hell was happening to the plot? Her unique scent filled my senses. Her dark hair was tied back simply. Staring into that impossibly beautiful face, I had no idea what to say. Do you love me? She whispered. I hesitated. To say I wasn't moved would be a lie. But before I could answer, her lips crashed onto mine. The cool touch was like an electric shock that coursed through my entire body. Her kiss was like the sun on a frozen mountain, commanding and passionate. Somehow, my hands found their way to her waist. After a long moment, she pulled away, her face bright red. Wait for me. I'm going to the king to ask for his blessing on our marriage. It finally hit me. I had just been forcibly kissed by a very assertive woman. Don't go. He'll never agree. Then I'll lead my 300,000 soldiers south and beat the Southern March into submission myself. Her face was a mask of cold, unshakable resolve. Then she was gone. This was great. Just great. The plot was a complete train wreck. Not only was I not dead, but all three heroines had apparently fallen for me. There's no burden heavier than a beautiful woman's affection. What was I going to do? That afternoon I got the news. Sierra had stormed out of the palace, moving so fast the royal attendants couldn't keep up. She didn't go back to her estate. She rode south out of the capital with her personal guard. I was floored. Was that lunatic really going to attack the Southern March? I didn't doubt for a second that she'd do it. But why was there no word from the palace? Whether my father agreed or not, shouldn't there be some kind of announcement? As the day of my departure loomed, I was a nervous wreck. The wedding preparations continued without a hitch. Lord Thorne came by several times to go over the finer points of protocol. Piles of lavish gifts for the Southern March filled my main hall. It seemed Sierra's desperate plea had failed. My father had ignored her. Fine by me. I was relieved. Meanwhile, the hero's fortunes soared. Caleb was promoted from a minor scribe to a senior archivist in the royal scriptorium, a key stepping stone to becoming prime minister. He was also granted a title of nobility. The guy's plot armor was working overtime. 7 days before my scheduled departure, news finally arrived from the southern border. The Southern March was furious that Ethelgard was sending a worthless playboy prince to be a consort. Protests had erupted across their country, demanding war. They had massed 400,000 troops on the border, ready to invade at a moment's notice. They had a specific demand: send the third prince, Marcus Vance, for the wedding. Otherwise, they would launch a full-scale invasion. Sierra Frost, smelling blood in the water, immediately positioned her 300,000 soldiers opposite them, creating a tense standoff. Rumor had it they'd already clashed a few times, with Sierra gaining a slight advantage. But the Southerners were now sending another 200,000 men by sea, aiming straight for our capital. The royal court exploded into chaos, splitting into two factions. One side pushed for peace, demanding Marcus be sent to marry the Southern princess. After all, the king was still young. There was no hurry to name a successor. The other faction, loyal to Marcus, insisted on appeasing them with land and still sending me. Either way, their solution was a political marriage. No one actually wanted a war. But something about the news felt off. The marriage had been arranged for months. The Southerners knew who they were getting. I was just a hostage. It shouldn't have mattered who I was. Why were they suddenly making a fuss about my reputation now? It's not like I'd just become a degenerate yesterday. An image flashed in my mind. Serafina, the star of the Gilded Cage. The head of the Nightingale Network. A network whose headquarters were in the Southern March. The moment the thought occurred, I was certain. This was Serafina's doing. The Nightingale Network was made up of women from pleasure houses. Smearing my name across an entire country would be child's play for them. A prince was a fine political offering, but a notoriously debauched prince that their own citizens knew about? The Southern royal family would never accept that. It was a brilliant, vicious plan. Serafina might seem gentle, but she was as cunning as they came. She didn't want me to go. I was slouched in my chair, sighing, when a dark shadow flickered outside my door. "Who's there?" I called out, instantly on alert. Before I could react, the world started spinning. All I had time for was a single curse before I blacked out again. When I woke up, my arms and legs were bound, and a rag was stuffed in my mouth. I was in what looked like a ruined temple, a crumbling statue of some forgotten god in the center. A fire crackled nearby, surrounded by men in black. I breathed a small sigh of relief. At least it wasn't Liana. This time I might get to keep both my heads. But then I saw a familiar figure among the men. Even with his face partially covered, I recognized him instantly. It was the hero, Caleb Hayes. Damn it, I was screwed either way. Nothing good could come from falling into his hands. "Sir, we have him. What are your orders?" one of the men asked. Caleb's face was grim. "This man has ruined the third prince's plans and my own. He deserves to die. So I just kill him?" Another man asked, licking his lips. "I've never killed a prince before." "You fool," Caleb snapped. "If we were going to kill him, we would have done it at his residence. Why go to all this trouble?" "Then what is your plan, sir?" A flicker of murderous intent crossed Caleb's eyes. "Behind this temple is a deep river. Tie a rock to his feet and throw him in. It has to be clean. No witnesses, no evidence." A few moments later, I was being carried to the riverbank. A heavy stone was tied to my ankles. So this was it. I played the game and lost. Two men lifted me and tossed me into the water. The icy river surged over my chest. The stone was a death sentence, dragging me down into the black abyss. I couldn't outrun them after all. I was about to give up. But then, the riverbank lit up with countless torches. Sierra's cold voice cut through the night. Behind her, I could vaguely make out two other figures. They looked like Liana and Serafina. "Caleb Hayes is guilty of attempting to murder a prince. Seize him. Get in the water. Save him. Save my Ethan." But the cold had already seeped into my bones. The last of my consciousness was fading as the dark water closed over me. Back in the capital, an earthquake shook the foundations of the kingdom. The king sat on his throne, his brow furrowed in anger. After a full investigation, the truth behind the attempted murder of the fourth prince, Ethan Vance, was laid bare. His own son, Marcus, had tried to have his brother killed, drowned in a river, and he'd been caught in the act by the warden of the South and the daughter of the Secretary of State. The evidence was irrefutable. The man who orchestrated it was his most promising protege, Caleb Hayes, whom he had been grooming for prime minister. He could tolerate Marcus bullying his younger brother, but Ethan was still his son. He would not allow an outsider to harm him. The king rubbed his temples. Marcus was an incurable fool. Ethan had already agreed to the political marriage. The path to the throne was clear. And yet, he still did this. Was he so impatient that he would resort to kinslaying? Could he be trusted with the kingdom? Below the throne, the court was in an uproar. One side argued to protect Marcus, the other to send him to the Southern March to avert the war. It was chaos. The king pondered for a long time before finally making his decision. The third prince, Marcus Vance, has betrayed the bonds of kinship. He will be sent to the Southern March to marry their princess and secure a lasting peace between our nations. Caleb Hayes, for the crime of high treason, will be executed and his family line extinguished. The fourth prince, Ethan Vance, who willingly offered himself for the good of the kingdom and demonstrated a noble heart, is hereby named Crown Prince of Ethelgard. I slowly woke up, my vision filled with a hazy, ethereal light. "Warning! Warning!" a disembodied voice echoed. "Narrative integrity compromised. System collapsing. Resetting to default state. Red lights flashed in my mind's eye. Before I could process what was happening, I felt a sudden lightness, as if an invisible weight had been lifted from my soul. I was free. The plot had completely shattered. The original book was gone. It was like the whole world had been formatted and rebooted. Yes, I was finally out, free from the clutches of the three heroines and the hero. With my knowledge from my past life, I could become a legendary poet, woo some ladies, invent glass or something, and become an obscenely wealthy merchant. The future was bright. Just as I was finishing my fantasy, three women walked into my room, side by side. Serafina, Sierra, and Liana. Oh hell, why weren't they deleted? I scrambled to get up, but the three of them pinned me to the bed. Your Highness, Liana cooed. I remember every word you said. Liana Thorne is going to be your primary wife. Sierra's face was cold. I command an army of 300,000. Are you sure you want to compete with me? Serafina just giggled. Oh, I don't need to be the crown princess. I only ask that my darling Ethan spend every night in my chambers. I shot up. Help. I don't agree to any of this. In unison, they replied, that's not up to you. End.